Aashna, and today I will be talking about human trafficking. Human trafficking is defined as compelling an individual to engage in commercial sex or forced unfair labor. A sex trafficker is someone who profits off of someone exchanging sexual acts in favor of anything of value, like money, food, drugs, or somewhere to stay. Today I will be focusing my talk on teen sex trafficking, as this is a grave problem that we face in Northern Virginia, though many other forms of trafficking do exist. When I say the words human trafficking, the first two images that often pop into people's minds are images like these. But this provides a slightly distorted vision of what human trafficking actually looks like. An actual victim may look like something like this. A girl who goes to your school, someone you might see every day. Even though human trafficking seems like a distant problem that only afflicts developing countries, it is very much a present issue in Northern Virginia. In fact, in 2012, there were 92 cases of human trafficking reported in Northern Virginia, and in 2017, there were 156. Out of these 156, 109 were sex trafficking. That's 70%. However, this problem is not only on the rise in Northern Virginia. It is the second largest criminal enterprise in the world, second only to drug trafficking. It is a $150 billion industry annually. When I say the words trafficking, it implies abduction or movement across borders. And though this is true, many victims are trafficked where they live in their own homes. They may be still going to school and seem fine to the outside world. Most trafficking victims go to school every day and sleep in their own beds. The trafficking occurs when they get out of school until maybe 8 or 9, and parents don't even realize their child is being exploited. Victims aren't bound by chains or ropes as people often perceive, but are instead bound by their dependence on a trafficker. So what does a trafficker look like? A trafficker can be a part of a gang like MS-13 or the Crips. They can even be potential employers like modeling scouts or significant others who may seem older. They can also be someone the victim really trusts, like a parent or another family member. So the process of trafficking can be broken down into 3 steps. There's recruitment, connection, and entrapment. First, traffickers look for victims when they're alone and isolated from adults. This could be at a bus stop, at a school, a mall, or even on the newest platform of social media. After traffickers find their victim, they start to form a connection. They feign an interest in their lives and pretend to be romantically interested in them and give them presents so they feel the attention. After this, they slowly introduce what is actually meant to happen. It may start off as something small like dancing for friends at a bar or a club and slowly turn into sexual favors. Hey, I bought you all these amazing things, you have to pay me back. After the trafficker has made a connection, they start the entrapment by making the victim dependent on them with drugs, alcohol, and blackmail. They threaten with the release of intimate pictures or videos that might have been taken under the influence of drugs and alcohol, and this keeps victims from speaking out against their trafficker and leaving the process altogether. As shown by the proliferation of social media over the past few decades, it's clear to see why teens are at the forefront and at the target of this issue. In fact, in Northern Virginia, the average age of the trafficked victim is 15 to 18 years old. Social media is used to entrap victims and keep them under the thumb of traffickers, as its ability to make us hyper-connected has allowed strangers the access to youth by pretending to be potential significant others on popular apps like Instagram, Snapchat, or Twitter, or even modeling scouts and potential employers on apps like Facebook. In fact, in 2017, 8% of all online sex trafficking victims were tied to sex ads on Facebook. 32% of victims in 2017 in the survey stated that their social media was stalked and monitored by their traffickers. 18% stated that their social media accounts were hacked even after they left the trafficking ring. Knowing this, it is imperative that we who are being targeted know how to practice safe social media practices, like making sure your accounts are private, you don't respond to or text anyone you don't know, and don't reveal personal information to strangers. Sexual assault and sexual violence is often synonymous with sex trafficking. Sexual violence is any sexual act in which consent is not freely obtained or received. Traffickers use fear and intimidation to coerce these young, impressionable youth to perform such acts that can scar them mentally and physically for life. In fact, studies have found that substance abuse rates can increase 3 to 4 times when a child has been sexually abused at a young age. There's also increased mental health problems like depression, anxiety, disassociation, sleep disorders that can all ultimately lead to self-harm. Children are also exposed to STDs like HIV and AIDS. Given that the average age for a child to enter forced prostitution is 12 to 14 years old, and most children die within 7 years of their first sexual interaction, very few children actually make it to adulthood. But the impacts of human trafficking go beyond this. This is the physical effects of exploitation of a teenager over 18 months. But victims are also crippled economically. This is because victims are often, as I stated before, addicted to drugs and alcohol that increase their hospitalization and medical bills, as well as the need for expensive treatment programs. They have also have interruption of schooling, as well as criminalization. In fact, 90% of victims had a criminal record that prevented them from gaining employment and from obtaining housing. This inhibits victims who have left trafficking to build stable lives with stable jobs. So, as I stated before, a victim can be anyone. So what do they look like? They can be part of any race, any gender, any social, economic class, any status. But there are a few things that traffickers hone in on, like vulnerable victims who don't have a lot of friends, feel outcast in their communities, don't have a good relationship with their parents, and are looking for a relationship with older individuals. This is so that it is easier to make them completely dependent on the traffickers, so they are the only constant in their lives. Before I conclude my talk, there are a few facts that are important to reinstitute and state again. First, Virginia ranked 15th in the United States in 2017 as having the most human trafficking cases found. It is a huge problem and it happens here. Next, only 1% of all human trafficking victims actually make it out of the ring, only 1%. And though the information I have spoken about tonight has seemed overwhelming and the problem may seem insurmountable, there are things that we can all do to solve it. First, it's important to recognize warning signs from your friends. If you see changes in behavior, if they seem to have fluctuations in their weight, they seem to withdraw from your friend group, revolve around one person constantly, seem to be hurt. Second, it is also important to report these things to a professional. Talking to organizations like Just Ask that work alongside victims to help them is incredibly important because very few cases in Virginia are actually prosecuted and taken to court. Next, it's important to understand that even though social media can work against us, its ability to make us hyper-connected can work in our favor. 19% of victims said that social media aided in their escape. We can also use social media to spread the word, share facts online, and stories of hope to reclaim the narrative. So I challenge you all today to tell 3 people one fact that you learned during my presentation to increase the awareness and keep talking about this issue. Thank you.